Are you afraid of the dark? Are you scared? I am you. Are you scared?
My head is heavy, let me lay it down. Into your lap, I would love to drown. I need that story I used to hear, to run on and to and disappear. Your stories, they come from the heart. Moving together and tear me apart. Burning down the walls, we let the monsters in, and now we're running down the halls. No, we can't let them win. There's an evil inside, it is lurking way down below. And if I can't hold my breath, then I'm bound to become hollow. Can you say that I disappeared? Can you say that I wasn't there for you when you went into hiding on the front steps of your porch? And I reflected on the memories, but I put out that torch. Hey! But I put out that torch. But I put out that torch.
Good morning, college esports fans, and welcome to the Utah Esports coverage of the Collegiate Overwatch Varsity Invitational Western Conference Round Robin matches. We are broadcasting to you live from Building 72 at the University of Utah campus. Hi, folks. I am Archie, Legend of Sleek Smith, joined here by...
I am Aiden, also known as Cable.
All right, thanks for joining us, Cable. Tonight we'll be covering two best-of-5 matches here. What can you tell us about them?
Sure, so the first matchup right now is the University of Utah against Boise State University. An interesting matchup. University of Utah and Boise State, I don't believe have ever played in the past. It's going to be an interesting fight. And the second match today is University of Utah Esports versus the University of North Texas. Again, another interesting choice, but these teams are all varsity teams. They've all been invited to the highest level of competition, and I'm excited to see how this is going to play out.
All right, I'm pretty excited. That being said, I think we're probably ready to get our first roster out here for Utah. You know 'em, you love 'em. It's Pioneer and Zombie on the tank line, Cool ABC and Gradient for DPS. Supporting them will be Hollow and Eevee. Few subs coming in here today for Utah.
This is a different roster than we saw last week, almost in its entirety. Zombie, Cool ABC, Zombie, Greenie, and Eevee, all new players that we didn't get to see play last week. But Pioneer, Cool ABC, and Hollow, all stalwarts of the roster, all very good players, and I'm especially interested to see what Cool ABC is going to pull out if he's going to play that signature May of his today.
Oh, yeah, we'll have times. And then their opposition, if we want to take a look over there, representing Boise, CBMX in the tank line, helped out by Sulpin. DPS, it's going to be Saladon and Modern Frost. And keeping all of these folks alive, it's Basilisk and Nerdy Bird.
This is another roster where some of these players you haven't heard of before, but obviously they're good enough to get onto a varsity roster. They're going to be playing their best today, and I'm very interested to see what their team's going to pull out.
I'm actually curious. Cable, do you know what was the actual process for qualifying for this round robin?
Yeah, so for the first 12 teams that were invited, Blizzard actually had an open round of applications. 12 teams are selected out of these applications, including the University of Utah. 4 other teams are allowed to play in via a play-in tournament, I believe, and 2 were sent to each round robin. So 2 teams to the west and 2 teams to the east.
Okay. That's actually pretty. So it wasn't exactly like a big tournament for everyone to get in here, but they all have been hand-selected by Blizzard to be viable competitors there. So we'll see how well that translates into their actual performances once we get into our first game here. Do you have any predictions for us?
I think that Utah is going to come out swinging. Come out of the gate with their best foot forward. I think we're going to see a lot of the double shield comps that we've seen from them in the past, and I'm hoping that if we end up on Hollywood again, we'll see that Winston Wrecking Ball composition that they brought out during their show match with Washington State. That's something that we haven't seen other teams really run, but they ran it and full held the first point.
That was actually pretty crazy. That whole match was kind of out there. I mean, when was the last time we've gone to Hollywood?
It's been a long time, I think. Hollywood is a very popular map in scrimmages, but you don't really see it in competitive play that much. I think especially because a lot of teams have practiced so much on that map, they just know how each team's going to play, and it's not really an easy way to counter each other's strategies when you've already played so many times on that map.
I suppose that makes quite a bit of sense. But then you get like the counter meta strat. You gotta make the place 5 steps in the future. Well, if everyone expects Hollywood, then if we prepare for Hollywood, we'll get them off good. But maybe that's thinking too much.
Yeah, there's a lot of strategy that comes into picking maps and things like that. I don't know how in depth each team's going to go with the counter picking and things like that, but I do think that Hollywood, a lot of teams just are kind of afraid of playing into each other. It becomes really down to which team has the better individual players rather than can we come up with a better counter strategy for this map.
And that's just always an awkward situation where you go to Hollywood and you're like, okay, I can push my buttons better than these guys. And then you can't push your buttons better than those guys. And you're like, oh no, now what?
You end up stuck at that first choke point and you're just left sitting there wondering how you're going to hold them for 4 minutes there.
Bit rough. You're wishing you were on a point with a bit more flexibility, chances to break on out of there. I guess just we're on the topic of maps. What would you say is probably like the premier alternative then?
The premier alternative, another map that everyone plays in scrimmages, the affectionately nicknamed Scrims Row of Kings Row, is a map that a lot of teams really enjoy playing. It's widely considered one of the best maps in Overwatch, and it offers a lot of flexibility for your strategies, just with all the high ground that's around the map. From the first point, you can play off to the right side into the hotel room. You can drop down off the balcony, play around the entire point. Into the streets phase, you have all these different areas for sitting on high ground. Behind the bar, off to the left side, a lot of teams will run Reaper or Sombra, hide them up on the high ground, and drop down with their ultimates. And even on the last point, you have all those areas where you can just get a little bit more height on your opponents and see what you can do with it.
Lots of opportunities for that 3D underwater mahjong going on in Kings Row. So that's always a personal favorite. It's going to be the big question then. What are our players going to kind of pick here? I actually don't have the specifics here, but generally tournament standard is the first map's pre-decided, then it's loser's pick from then on out.
Yeah, usually maps or tournaments have a map pool that you can select from, and a lot of times, especially with TESPA tournaments, they will limit what map type you can play. So it will usually always be control first because that determines a winner and a loser without fail. There is no possibility for a tie. Then the losing team will usually get to select from a pool of 2CP or assault maps, which generally consists of Volskaya Industries, Paris, maps like that. After 2CP, we usually get into the hybrid and escort maps. So hybrid being Kings Row, Hollywood maps that start with a point and then move on to a payload section. Or escort maps like Route 66 and Watchpoint Gibraltar, where you start with the payload unlocked from the very beginning and just have to push straight through to the end. And then you usually wrap back around to control maps again.
And then usually by then you're done. Since we're in a best of 5, it's that's why I really like kind of about how we start at kind of King of the Hill, end at King of the Hill. We have to start with, and we need to have a definitive end right here. We don't want to do anymore. We're good.
And for tiebreakers, you usually end up playing one of the control maps that you haven't played yet. Thankfully, there are now 5 control maps in the game, so if you really needed to, you could go to 5 straight games of control. Not that any team, I think, would want to tie that many times in a row.
No, that would probably be one of the most stressful and exhausting things imaginable. That's like an 8-round Anubis.
Or an 8-round Volskaya, which I've had the unfortunate indignity of playing on stream before and losing on stream.
That was fun. You know, when I was actually learning to cast Overwatch, one of the first games that I did kind of a practice solo cast on, it was like Season 1 Overwatch League, Seoul Dynasty versus Dallas Fuel, and they did an 8-round Anubis on my first cast. So I'm like, is this normal? Should this be happening? Was I supposed to be ready for this?
It's kind of a marathon cast. You don't really get time to have breaks in between either. You get that break in between the first and second rounds, and then you just go straight through to the end. You have maybe 45 seconds to a minute in between rounds. Not a lot of time to catch your breath, especially as a solo caster.
Oh, yeah, no, that was not my favorite casting. Well, okay, maybe it's my favorite casting memory because it's a much better story than the normal practices, which are just practices to go normally and
kind of run of the mill. They all blend into one another.
Yeah, I can't say any other solo cast I remember that vividly. There was this one best of 7, but that was a MOBA. And anyway, we're not talking about that one.
Overwatch is kind of a MOBA in a sense.
It's almost a MOBA. Except for the part where it's not.
Yeah, where it's a first-person shooter instead.
Yeah. Pretty different situation here. We talked about Utah's subs earlier, and I believe you said it was Pioneer, Hollow, and Eevee. I think if you've been a long-time follower of kind of Utah esports stuff, Eevee has been working with this team since when they were just Crimson Gaming before Utah esports was Utah esports. Normally in the coaching role now. Definitely no stranger to sports. I'm more curious about kind of Hollow, Pioneer. Those are things we don't really know much about. Those are
2 players who I don't think we've seen before. I believe they're new additions to the team this year. Unlike Eevee, who has been a stalwart member of the team since the first season of TCS. She was actually a player back in 2016 and now has transitioned to more of a coaching role. They're kind of an unknown factor, and actually we're getting into game right now.
All right, well, we had to fly all the way over to Lijiang, so we're sorry about the flight delay, but we're here now, and you asked, you received. It's cool ABC on May.
I'm very happy to see the May Bastion comp coming out on the first point of Lijiang Tower, this indoor point. Let's see how they're going to set up.
We're going to move straight forward, double barriers to kind of cover the front of this Bastion. Boise State, they are using the Reaper Doomfist here, but Pyros will go out very early here. A lot of barrier power removed. Basilisk not going to be able to keep it going. Cool ABC trades out, but too little, too late. Greeny all up in the kill feed, and it's going to be all red on this point.
That is a very quick take. I think that Boise State made a bit of a mistake by trying to challenge that Bastion when they're not running a Bastion of their own. They don't really have the damage to get through those shields in the same way. They could have just sat around the point, sat on there, and forced Utah to come to them.
Yeah, normally kind of wants to give your Doomfist a chance to like pick off some piece of the puzzle from behind, make the machine a little more efficient before you rage against it. And well, there's a wall. There's a Lucio on the wrong side of the wall. I think they're okay.
They look to be okay here.
Okay, but the Blizzard catches a lot of people. ABC gonna get those Blizzard elims here.
Fast Blizzard.
Oh, yeah, just apparently getting those right clicks all up in here. Greeny's tank configuration maybe not needed, but it looked cool.
That's 2 ultimates spent from Utah, but they already have 2 more with 2 more on deck. Boise State is barely halfway to half their ults, and this is just domination from Utah right now. They're going to be able to win fights through ultimates, and even with that pick off on Nerdy Bird all the way in the back, they've just ended a fight before it started.
Honestly, that was Nerdy Bird not respecting the May right-click damage very much here. That's a little awkward. Just because you're near your spawn doesn't mean you're safe. See a bit more caution going forward. This could be in trouble, kind of frozen in an awkward place, but the halt will buy them some time to get on out of there. That's healing for your team. There's the gravitational flux, my bad. 2 fall for Boise. They have 4 more and not many ultimates. So that's going to be Nerdy Bird falling down. Has Boise had an ult yet?
No, they're about to get their first on Basilisk. They're actually about to get all of their ults. So let's see if they're able to charge up all 6 and then really kind of come into this fight with the best possible chances of winning and see what happens.
They will have to be careful. They are fighting into a blizzard. They are fighting into a supercharger, and they have about 5 seconds to get onto the point, get through these things. That wall is going to eat half that time alone. Sound barrier, the Reaper's going to move forward to get the touch, leaving the rest of the team not going to be enough. Boise State just control here on the command side.
I don't think they made the right decision by not sending the Reaper around to the right side. Using your teleport, you can actually go basically from the spawn doors all the way to point without ever having to touch that team in front. That Maywall really, really came in clutch because they didn't do that. And instead, Boise State went from having a chance to touch, having a chance to force Utah to run around to the back and kind of deal with that Reaper on point. Instead, they just give up the entire round.
That is a bit rough that they didn't take that flanking option. I kind of wish we had gone to Street Market after this because I want to, because I think one of my favorite memories of Street Market is Day 1 Wrecking Ball release. The one I just wanted was you can fly around the outside of the map and get to the point in about, I think when I timed it was about a minute in, no, not a minute, 1.4 seconds is what I was trying to say.
That is incredibly fast. That would have helped a lot in that stall situation. But instead, we're here on Lijiang Tower, and we're seeing Utah bring out the Pharah. A really interesting choice to pair with that Bastion.
Oh yeah, it kind of gives you threats in all directions. I mean, this is the comp is the bane of ranked games. Someone get the Pharah! Someone get the Bastion! Oh no! There's both!
And Boise State's a bit unlucky here because they haven't picked a hit scan. They haven't really picked a hero who can really deal with that Pharah. So Pharah's just going to get some free damage off the top. Let's see if Modern Frost ends up swapping over to a hit scan hero. But then, once you deal with that Pharah, you still have to get through the Bastion.
But I do like the Mei into this. The wall can really mess with Bastions quite a bit, so I don't mind that staying. The Reaper, I am kind of wondering what's the thought process behind keeping it.
I don't know if there is a thought process other than this might be what they're very comfortable playing. I don't know if it's very effective against Pharah Bastion, especially not when this Pharah is looming over your heads with an ultimate.
Keep an eye on this. This could be, there it is! The Halt draws the enemies into it. ABC doesn't get much, but the distraction will actually make this a bit of a messy fight. Eevee doesn't get the res here, but Zombie and Pioneer really keeping it alive. Immortality Field kind of does that for you.
The Immortality Field was just huge there. It kept everyone alive. Even though the Reaper had a very good flank route on that Bastion, he could see the kind of nose cone of his barrel sticking out from around the corner. He wouldn't be able to get the kill because that Immortality Field is still there.
Bit of a tough spawn here now. Utah have about half captured this point. They're going to have to rotate back as Boise going to be taking this flanking path in. The ABC though has already put them down a man. Low on time. Can they wait for this respawn?
What happened to Cool ABC there?
That's a very good question.
It looks like he might have fallen off the side because they're not getting the res off on him.
Yep, probably what happened here. Nerdy Bird and Pyros, they decide, you know, maybe this is the time to go. The Cool ABC's down, but Hollow's damage amplification field was enough to burn through a lot of their tank line. Greeny has this tank configuration, getting low, not getting a ton of value out of this. Yeah, bit awkward, but Utah still the beneficiary of it all.
Yeah, it was a bit of an awkward choice to go in there because even though they are down the Pharah, you've lost your own Mei. Now your Mei's in alone, and you have to make sure that you can get to her before she gets picked off again and you stagger out one more time.
And then they also need to get on the point kind of right now. Nope, okay.
Well, that is unfortunate that they weren't able to bring anyone onto the point. You can see the Sigma coming around in the back while the rest of their team comes into the bridge, but it looks like Utah was able to do enough to keep them off that point and secure that win early on in this game to go up 1-0 in the series.
So that is going to be their advantage. Looking pretty good on this King of the Hill. I don't believe they allowed Boise to flip the point at all in that one. This team is just too comfortable on Mei Bastion. I hope I never run into them in my ranked games.
I agree. Mei Bastion is a very oppressive comp, especially when it works very well. Bastion just puts in so much damage, and there's usually no good way to get into him behind those two shields, especially when there's a Mei peeling for him at every step of the opportunity, or every step of the way.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tough spot. I guess if you are kind of the coaching staff behind Boise right now, well, what are you kind of telling the gang to how are we going to get around this?
I think that the biggest thing would be to rethink our DPS choices. We need to be more flexible in the middle of the game. If we're just stuck with we can only run Reaper May, we can only run this one composition, and we have to make it work. This is the only thing we've practiced. I think we're in a bit of trouble here, especially when we're running into these comps that don't respond well to May Reaper. We need to start looking into running things like Doomfist, running more aggressive double shield comps, maybe running, instead of the Moira, running the Baptiste, so that we can get our own immortality matrix. And even, this might be a bit radical, running the same comp back into them and trying to find a way to use it more effectively.
So you try to beat them at their own game. Bit of an intimidating prospect, but like if it works, now you're the intimidating one.
Exactly. And getting through that double shield with a Bastion behind it without your own Bastion can be a bit difficult. There's nothing in the game that can really out-damage a Bastion, especially one that's getting damage boosted by a Mercy.
Yeah, no, but I went through all the options. No, it's not really there.
450 damage per second, it's a bit...
Okay, well, still, they will have the choice here. They're going to see if they can find a way to make it work on Numbani. We'll kind of just have to see, well, what are they going to set up? Or are they going to have the answer?
I think
so the May Bastion is still really good here.
Yeah, this is a bit of an odd choice. Numbani is a map that's seen a lot of Bastion play over the years. There are a few different spots, especially on the first point, where you can kind of hide a Bastion in an interesting spot, rotate around between a set of different spots to always keep the attacking team on their toes.
You know, actually think about that rotation here. As much as Bastion is played here, it's actually normally kind of with the Symmetra as opposed to the May, so you can bounce between all those locations.
Exactly.
Do you expect Utah to bring out the moving castle, or are they stick to the May strength?
I don't think we've ever seen Utah run a Symmetra, but the ping pong strategy in particular, where you're bouncing between high ground, low ground, inside of a cubby, up to the left side high ground or right side high ground, you get a lot of different angles. It's very hard to cover that, especially with stationary shields.
All right, well, I believe we're ready to go on in here, so... yes, we'll just have to find out. Well, I believe we are hearing some news. We are going to have some subs coming in.
Looks like DPS subs as well. So
Oh.
Wei is coming in for Modern on the side of Boise State. And I'm interested to see what this is going to... I'm sorry, Y is coming in for Boise State.
Okay,
I'm interested to see what his hero pool is compared to Modern's and see if they get a bit more flexibility out of this roster. If that first game was just kind of them trying to feel out what's Utah going to run. Although Utah has shown in the past that tendency towards May, that tendency towards Bastion.
Well, it is possible, since we are on Numbani, that they could be switching in maybe their Forest specialists. We know that Forest is really favored on attacking point A. Got to make the Justice rain down in Africa. And well, we'll see if that's the best strategy for them, or if they're just going to be running into a brick wall again. I mean, how do you feel about the Farah on this point?
I think Farah can be very strong. But I do think that she lacks a bit of utility against Bastion, especially behind those shields.
Okay, well, now we are ready. Sorry for the false alarm, guys. We are ready to go into Numbani now to get a glimpse of who's on defense first, who's on offense first, see what plays can be made to happen.
I'm very interested in seeing what both teams start out with. If Boise or Utah are going to run that kind of dive offense onto the first point that we see some teams favor, or if we're going to see more of that double shield, kind of the mirror matchup, and maybe if one team will break out that offensive Bastion that some teams really love to run.
Offensive Bastion is a good time, except when it's not working, and then it's very, very slow, and it takes you forever to set up a fight.
This will be interesting, though. There's a lot of options. Numbani is a map that's very open. And while we're waiting to get into the game, I mean, what are some of your thoughts? What have you run into in Numbani in your competitive play experience?
Listen, Kale, I need to be honest with you real quick. I'm in silver. I don't think I don't think we want my insight on what good competitive strategies are for Numbani.
We are seeing something interesting, though. Both teams running exactly the same lineup.
Okay.
Was this planned out beforehand, do you think?
We have had gentlemen's agreements before on Utah esports streams, but I think this is actually just kind of a popular play here.
Yeah, this is an official match. I can't imagine a true gentleman's agreement. But both teams running that Pharah and that Bastion, trying to get in behind the shields of the Pharah, and maybe just brute force their way through with that Bastion.
Yeah, I think we were right to say Y is going to be the Pharah specialist. They probably wanted it more for attack than defense. But Oh, they are attacking right now, and I guess Cool ABC kind of anticipated the attack. Far as like, I got this. Fight me.
Yeah, that Pharah duel is something that you really need to get a lot of value out of. You need to be able to take out that Pharah and keep your Bastion protected, especially when the shields are going down this quickly.
I think it's going to kind of be an interesting question here. Cool ABC actually kind of joined this Utah esports team after Evie had moved to the coaching role. So now they're trying to make this pharmacy combo work with two players whose careers start and end don't really line up.
But it seems like it's working out very well. Cool ABC already has a barrage. Drops it in.
Firing right into the immortality field. Pyros gets 2 here. Pioneer and ABC are out of here. Res not yet made. Possible. ZBMX goes a bit too far forward. Eevee will save the main tank. Should help Utah survive for a bit longer. Greenie's out though without a Bastion of their own to contest. Utah might be in trouble. Hollow already backing out. Tank configuration putting pressure on the Sigma player here. The stun is good. Immortality field is better. Zombie removes it, but can't quite find the Bastion. Greenie's almost back. ABC's return to the fray here. You had to get aggressive for a heal, but Utah, as awkward as this fight has been, they have sort of found a second win in this. Against clutch picks, can they finish this? Mercy ABC needs it, but can't quite find it. Oh, will funnel them into that cage room here. ABC makes the big save in time. But Boise in control of the point. Zombies out. Greenies here. Take configuration coming in big today. One more player on the point. Can they remove this Batiste, or will they be removed by the Batiste?
What a play. What a play by every member of Utah to just keep their composure as Boise was pressing on to that point. That fight went on for so long. First fight of the game, 2 minutes off the clock already. I don't know if Boise's in a very good spot here, although they are getting 5 ultimates charged up and ready to go. In exchange, Utah has had to make a few hero swaps. Eevee went to that Lucio at the start of the fight, or at the end of the fight rather, and is now back onto the Mercy, but lost all of the ultimate charge. Let's see if Utah can hold this with less ultimates than Boise State has.
The Valkyrie is going to be kind of Boise's big advantage in this one. Also, the earlier barrage, has to be careful about that one. Zombie's gravitational flux is really, why falling early there is really big by Cool ABC. Big duel to win right now.
They lose that ultimate. They don't have an option once they destroy those shields, and Greenie takes out the opposing Bastion. That's a lost fight for Boise. They need to go back and regroup.
Just the removal of the DPS says, no, you are not going to win this barrier war. Goodbye.
Especially someone as important to the composition as Bastion. And we see Cool ABC going in for this flank again. Will they drop the Immortality field? Do they even have the Immortality field? And it looks like he's not even going to need to use it.
ABC was able to bait out that Kinetic Grasp from CBMX, so he was not able to absorb any more damage. Barrage not even needed, but the advantage of Boise State is they really didn't have much baited out from them there. They still have the DPS and tank ultimates available, so they're running out of time, but not out of options.
The other thing is, at this point, Boise State has those ultimates again, but Utah's had enough time to charge up all of theirs as well. We're now going into an even fight. Boise State actually changing up their angle of attack, going down main instead. Let's see what happens.
But Greenie is there waiting for them. 20 seconds left. This will go to overtime. Pressure onto the Bastion. An Immortality field just in time. Supercharger comes out. Cool ABC, however, finds their target. Gravitational flux disrupts a lot. Greenie disrupts everything with 4 tank configuration eliminations. The barrage was nice, why? But it was too little, too late. Greenie putting on a clinic.
And we're seeing these Baptistes just get so much value out of that Immortality field. Every single fight, we see both teams start with the Immortality field around the corner where no one can touch it, just putting in damage, charging up ultimates, and then towards the end of fights, we start seeing those Immortality fields drop in the center. And as you can see there, Utah dropped their Immortality field in such a place where they didn't get it destroyed. They were just staying alive through that entire fight. Meanwhile, Boise State dropped theirs in an unfortunate position. Everyone walked out of the Immortality field. It gets destroyed. They didn't get as much value out of it. And as a result, Cool ABC's barrage just did so much damage, took out the Bastion, and just kind of ended the fight right then and there.
Yeah, there definitely was a tough spot to be. I used to really be under the impression that kind of tank configuration wasn't much of an Ultagon. Usually you were better sitting in Sentry form, but I feel like just in the last couple of months, the amount of quality tank configuration plays has just like gone through the roof.
One of the big reasons for that is Baptiste's new amplification matrix. Because it doubles the damage of every shot coming through, that turns the tank bullets from maybe a one-shot on some heroes to a guaranteed one-shot on basically anything under 300 health, which means you see the enemy Bastion coming, you're in tank form, One shot, Bastion gone, deleted off the map.
All right, well, that is kind of scary when you put it like that. Unless they were chunking for a little more than I was used to. So, pretty exciting there. We should be getting ready for our second round here on Numbani. It is now the turn of Boise State to defend. What do you think of their starting composition?
I think that they have made some interesting choices. That Ashe is definitely designed for a double shield comp, which we don't see University of Utah running, but you can place that dynamite behind the tank line, get some extra damage there, and then build up that bob just to contest the point without having to go down. Unfortunately, Utah's running a dive comp now with traditional dive DPS, and a bit of an interesting choice with that Wrecking Ball over the Winston.
This is full dive in 2019, like October. What's going on, Aiden? Success doesn't seem to be going on.
It doesn't seem like Utah's really getting the value that they expected out of this, although Pioneer picking up one kill there. Boise State's able to clean them up pretty efficiently, and it looks like that change, the Ashe Farah comp, has really done some wonders for them in terms of their ability to survive and really thrive on this point on defense.
Yeah, they're doing just fine. They didn't end up playing against the comp that they drafted for, but clearly working out all right. Nerdy Bird and Basilisk now have a lot of charge towards their ults. They're feeling pretty okay for now. Why? Looking at this Tracer. Almost gets him right there. CBMX will finish off Greeny. Zombie demeched. This composition is really just kind of falling on its face, if we're being real.
Yeah, Boise has done something really smart here, and they've decided to group their players into groups of 3. This makes it really hard for the tanks to get in and find a single target they can isolate and dive on. Instead, Boise is using all of the players to peel for each other, and as a result, they're able to get so much more value every time a tank comes in. That's free ult charge, although we see Greeny get a really good pickoff there, 2 good pickoffs.
Okay, now there's a Widowmaker in play. Utah, they have changed the playbook completely. They shown that they can win with the conventional stuff, and now they're trying to win with everything else. Still, Greeny gets 2 initial shots here. Y has a nano-boosted rocket barrage to try and put an end to that nonsense there. Charger works for now. Greeny hasn't found much more since the start. Can't seem to land on this Farah here. Now under pressure, stunned out. Throw the end of Green's contributions to this one here. Bob does something. Zombies down, and Utah back in base for less than 2 minutes.
Yeah, Boise was really able to make up for those early picks just by putting their tanks in the point and staying alive. Just, again, peeling for each other, using those shields very effectively. Utah wasn't really able to get in. They shut down the Widowmaker after those initial 2 picks, and because of that, there wasn't really anything left for them to do. They just had to go in and see what they could find on the point.
Right, listen, Greeny's great at clicking heads. They are. They really are. But barriers, with double barrier compensate, there are no heads to click on.
Yeah, you're just trying to click through that barrier, and every single time, you're just not getting enough damage to get through it.
So they are sticking to it. They really want this far. That's kind of the pick you're dropping for. But here is the Dragon Blade. Gets the Ashe removed. Can Cool ABC just get a little bit more from it? Not just yet. There's the pick Greeny really wanted. Y is out of this one. So is Pyros. University, they're getting through these bodies in time. Gravitic Flux will actually just get CBMX killed here, but does allow a post-mortem kill for the Sigma. Not the most common sight, and there's the match.
Yeah, Utah was able to come back with those picks. The Dragon Blade on the Ashe, not exactly the value that you were looking for. You want to get that Mercy, you want to get that Lucio, those high-value support targets, but even just distracting them and pulling them away from their tanks, they're able to pick off the Orisa, they're able to pick off the Farah, and with those 3 dead, that's the point already in Utah's favor. The Sigma did his best to kind of try to stay alive, use that Gravitic Flux, get whatever he could out of it, but because he ended up floating up, he came out from behind his barrier. He opened himself up to the Widowmaker, and as a result, got picked off just as well.
Yeah, that's a bit rough to see here, especially. I mean, I think it was pretty good from Cool ABC. Hello. We seems to be having some delay here. We're gonna.
I think actually this match might have been a best of 3 because this is the round robin instead of a best of 5. So with that win, Utah actually takes the match over Boise State.
Oh, okay. Well, all right then. That's gonna be it for now. We will continue around 4 o'clock with the second match of the evening. It's going to be a little while, so that's going to be the stream for the time being. That being said, I am Archie Sleek Smith. Follow me on Sleek Esports.
I am Aiden, also known as Cable. Follow me on Twitter at CableOW.
This has been the Utah Esports coverage of the Varsity Invitational of Overwatch. We will see you in about an hour and a half.
Say